guys, Otterpop here. Oversimplified has a brand new video, and you can believe your arse that I'm going to be reacting to it as soon as I frickin' possibly can. What? So I think the last Oversimplified video I reacted to, it was actually, I want to say a little over a week after it actually came out, but this time it's only a few days after coming out, and basically this time Oversimplified has released a two-parter on the Napoleonic Wars, which is something that I was wondering when he was going to get to by the time the French Revolution video, or the second part of the French Revolution video anyways, finished up. So I was wondering when he was actually going to touch on the Napoleonic Wars, and this will be a really interesting reaction because I know very, very little about the Napoleonic Wars and just kind of Napoleon in general. Like, I might know tiny little bits here and there, but I really don't know a lot. I'm serious. Like, it was something that I never really covered in a whole lot of my history classes. We never got that far because we were still stuck on other things too. But yeah, so this will definitely be interesting. It's like this video and the next video will be hitting me with all kinds of facts that I don't know anything about. So let's see where this takes us. Let's see how much I can learn. I'm going to learn something new every day. I'm probably going to learn like 100 new things today with this video alone. And another 100 new things with the second one. Okay, let's go.
This video was made possible by NordVPN. Stay safe online by clicking the link below and get a huge discount off a 2-year plan with a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. Also, why not grab yourself a character pin of the little corporal himself before they sell out? And big shout out to the patrons. Head on over to learn about benefits such as Discord access and maybe even a little behind-the-scenes content.
You make these videos possible.
Okay, Mrs. Bonaparte, this is it. One last push and we're done. Congratulations, it's a general. Oh, and here comes the rest of the army now. Did you just say the rest of the army?
It's like the birth of Lincoln on steroids. That was great.
History
that was
is full
such a
of
good
great
title
conquerors,
card.
many with very impressive origin stories. For example, Alexander the Great was the son of a king. Julius Caesar came from an aristocratic family that descended from a goddess. Great conquerors don't usually come from relatively insignificant families living on impoverished islands. But as it just so happens, that is where our story begins. In the early 18th century, the island of Corsica was a part of the Republic of Genoa, until one day Corsica said, hey, we're declaring independence, and it's probably not worth your time to try and stop us. So Genoa said, you're right, it isn't worth their time. Hey France, you want to buy this island? And France said, sure thing. And thus, Corsica became France, just in time for Napoleon to be born French. Many Corsicans didn't appreciate their new conquerors, however, and from an early age, Napoleon developed some fairly anti-French sentiments. Napoleon's dad, however, quickly embraced his new French overlords, which created some tension between dad and son.
That's quite a dichotomy.
Ooh, look at me. I'm dad. I wear powdered wigs and silver-buckled shoes, and I'm a traitor to the Corsican people. Go to your room, Napoleon. No, you go to your room, Dad. Okay. On the other hand, Napoleon adored his mother, who was definitely the disciplinarian of the family. And even though she would punish Napoleon severely, he kind of respected that. But Napoleon's parents wanted the best for their family. And since they were of very minor nobility, they were able to have Napoleon sent off to the shining lights and rat-infested sewage puddles of the big city. Napoleon went to military school in France. Okay, Napoleon, why don't you introduce yourself to your new classmates?
Oh boy.
Well, I'm Napoleon, and I hate all of you. Your farts smell like cheese, you can't pronounce the letter R, all you do is go on strike, and you call eggs oofs like a bunch of big dumb idiot dingleberries. Okay. Thanks, Napoleon. I hope you like being bullied. And bullied he was. They picked on him for his Corsican accent, his family's lack of wealth, and it probably didn't help that he also had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. But he could hold his own, and on an average day, might be found dishing out ratatouille sandwiches for breakfast. He spent much of his time alone, and he loved reading about the great conquerors of history. He learned about Julius Caesar, and he wondered if one day he too might have a pizza franchise named after him.
Oh boy.
He excelled at math and geography, and when he graduated at the age of 16, he was made second lieutenant in an artillery regiment.
Wow.
Now, second lieutenant might sound pretty sweet to a screw-up like you, but Napoleon had a little something called ambition. Stonks of it. And he wasn't content being just some junior officer.
I do know.
He wanted to rise the ranks. Unfortunately for him, that would be a little difficult. Well, Napoleon, I've reviewed your application. It's clear you're very skilled and would be a perfect fit for the promotion. And Simeon, you're just about the biggest idiot I've ever seen. Your test results suggest you have the mental aptitude of a senile earthworm, and in the part of the form where you list your experience, you seem to have drawn a picture of a gerbil giving birth to a shoe. But your dad is the Marquis de la Fufayette, so you get the job. French society was just too closed off. Positions were handed out based on nobility, not talent. And the young Napoleon probably felt stuck.
True.
Wouldn't it be nice if, say, a revolution came along and changed all of that? Well, what are the chances? The French Revolution is here. Bastille toppling, head chopping, king popping. The revolution promised to do away with the old social hierarchy and make everyone a little more equal. Napoleon may not have cared much for the violent mobs, but if it meant he could rise the ranks, he was in. He began fighting to defend the revolution. He put down a British-sponsored counter-revolution in Toulon and got promoted. He put down a royalist uprising in Paris and got promoted. And as his military prowess became more recognized, he was even given his very own army. It was astonishing progress for such a young man of humble origins, and Napoleon's wildest dreams were coming true. But Napoleon also believed he could increase his social status if he married an older rich lady. And so around this time, Napoleon went on the prowl. However, if some sources are to be believed, he was a verified creep. He reportedly had terrible luck with women, and most wanted nothing to do with him. Fortunately, he eventually met Josephine, an aging single mother who was deeply in debt and needed stability, so she agreed to marry him despite finding him intensely disgusting. Napoleon, you dirty dog, you've done it.
So that was something that I didn't really know too. Well, okay, frankly, a lot of it was stuff that I didn't really know. Like, I think I may have heard kind of the rumor that he was not very good looking at all, but again, it was just a rumor, and I don't really know much about Napoleon or, the Napoleonic Wars. I didn't even know much about the French Revolution to begin with. I don't know. I've always been a lot more fascinated by ancient or more by older history, I guess you could say, whereas a lot of the modern history, postmodern history, even some pre-modern history, it basically kind of any time after maybe the 1500s or something like that, or 1600s, kind of maybe up until about the Renaissance era is a lot of that kind of stuff I'm really fascinated with. But once you start getting past that, I start getting a little bit less interested, so I don't really know as much. And it's not that I'm dumb, I just didn't have an interest, so I didn't actively try and listen for or research any of these kinds of topics. So again, I may have known a teeny tiny little thing here and there, but man, he really rose through the ranks. And France at the time, before the pre-French Revolution at least, did have a hierarchical system that was kind of unfair to a lot of different people, and I'm sure I can completely understand why Napoleon would, defend the French Revolution. So good on him, he really rose in the ranks. But how is this gonna go with him marrying a member of, I guess, the sort of elite? Not exactly, even though she didn't really care for what he looked like, but she's aging, she's a single mother, and she didn't really care about him, and she was very much in debt. Oof, how's that gonna go? Yeesh. I can't even remember, did Napoleon even have any kids? I don't remember that. I bet at some point, though, the whole Napoleon is short thing is going to come up at some point in one of these two videos, because either it's kind of... I can't exactly remember what the conclusion was on that. Either he was just average-sized, or he was relatively short, but that's probably because most people from France kind of were on the shorter side, or if it was just a bold-faced lie. I don't remember which of those categories the whole Napoleon is short debate falls under, but there was a reason for it existing, and I can't exactly remember why, and I don't remember what the conclusion on that was, but I'm sure that Oversimplified will be telling us at some point, so I trust Oversimplified. Got some good facts.
Who was deeply in debt and needed stability, so she agreed to marry him despite finding him intensely disgusting. Napoleon, you dirty dog, you've done it. Unbeknownst to Napoleon, however, Josephine had a bit of a promiscuous reputation.
Oh.
Hey, Napoleon, I hear you're marrying Josephine. Boy, she sure is a great kisser. That's right. Hey, wait, what do you mean she's a great kisser? Hey, Hugo, you hear Napoleon's marrying Josephine? Wow, she sure is a great kisser. Now hang on just a minute. Hey, everyone, Napoleon's marrying Josephine. Oh, yeah, she sure is a great kisser. She's real good at kissing. Wow, I'm pretty sure I kissed
Napoleon's getting a little bit.
For goodness sake, is there anyone here who hasn't kissed my wife? Yeah, you. As Napoleon fell madly in love with his new wife, she fell madly in love with a man named Hippolyte. It wouldn't be long, however, before Napoleon would leave home and go to war, because while France was having its revolution, tensions in Europe were rising. Hey, Austria, you'll never guess what we just did. What's that, France? I got 2 words for you. Revolution. We totally just socked it to our monarchy. What? Dude, the rest of us are monarchies. You've just totally threatened the balance of power in Europe. Now we have to worry about our stinky peasants rising up against us. I mean, holy hell, your queen is... Okay, France, this is pretty awkward. And the rest of Europe is probably itching to give you a wedgie. But you're not ready for a war yet. So you gotta be cool, man. It's absolutely crucial that you say something to defuse the situation right now. Preposterous!
Austria is still saying stuff in the background.
I declare war. Sacre bleu! So France ended up at war with basically the rest of Europe, and the War of the First Coalition began. At first, France
I'd
struggled,
heard about this.
but
I
then they
didn't
started to do
really know what it was
surprisingly well,
about.
and in many conquered territories, they began to establish sister republics, exporting their revolutionary
This
ideas
is where Napoleon
across
started
Europe.
to really
In
gain some
1796,
traction,
they planned a
I think.
3-pronged attack to take Vienna and knock Austria out of the war, with 2 magnificent armies in the north to kick ass, and Napoleon in the south as a bit of a diversion. For the first time, Napoleon would lead a military campaign. This was his chance to prove himself, to be somebody. And what a general he proved to be.
Yeah, I'd actually heard about that. I had heard of the War of the Coalition. Like, I'd heard of that, but I didn't really know what exactly it was about or what had started it. But basically, it was all the monarchies against France because, French Revolution happened, basically. Which, in a way, might have happened a little bit because of the American Revolution. I mean, there wasn't any direct correlation. There may have been some indirect correlation. But, American Revolution leads to French Revolution, leads to the War of the Coalition. Like, it just kind of makes sense. But I'd had heard a little bit about this. And as soon as I saw France going to war against everybody, I'm like, oh, this is probably where Napoleon would gain traction. Like, logically, it just makes sense. Because, he was incredibly talented. Like, I do know that much. Like, he, for everything that he ended up doing, probably not great. He still had a lot of accomplishments. He was still a very accomplished, war hero. He was very skilled in all different kinds of things, and he did help France. I think he helped France's economy a little bit, or at least he helped the governmental state, or something along those lines. Again, obviously he'll be remembered as a guy who kind of, a friggin' series of wars was named after him. The Napoleonic Wars, man. Like, so clearly he did something that everybody else definitely disagreed with, but he wasn't exactly as bad of a guy as people make him out to be, I think. I'm sure at this point people probably know that. Yeah, he's just... He still had some incredible accomplishments. He was still fairly good at a lot of things, and he did do quite some good things for, the French system, from what I'm vaguely remembering. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but I'll just let Oversimplified talk.
For the first time, Napoleon would lead a military campaign. This was his chance to prove himself, to be somebody. And what a general he proved to be. The army he was given were demoralized, lacking equipment, and underpaid. But Napoleon galvanized them with inspirational speeches, and he took them into Italy. He was outnumbered, and his campaign was partially meant to be a sideshow, but he made it the main show. While the 2 northern armies were being held back, Napoleon made staggering progress. In a signature Napoleon move, he masterfully split his enemies into 2 and took them on separately, knocking Sardinia out of the war and putting the Austrians on the run. At the famous Battle of Lodi, he was in the fray, aiming the cannons himself, getting covered in mud, and earning the total respect of his men. They respected him so much that when he ordered an almost suicidal assault on the only bridge in town, his men threw themselves at it and took it despite fierce Austrian resistance. For Napoleon, it was all he needed to confirm that he was the greatest human who had ever existed. Wow, Napoleon, you're pretty great at this military stuff. Just be careful your head doesn't get too big. What did you just say to me, you little prick? And as Napoleon swept through northern Italy...
Has Oversimplified said prick in any of his videos before? Oh my god. That was hilarious. Just the delivery. Oh my gosh. That was so good. That caught me totally off guard. That was fun. I'll have to listen to that again. Hold on. That's the thing, is that Napoleon, for sure, this I know for a fact, Napoleon was known, even throughout in the entirety of history, for being extremely charismatic. He just knew how to boost morale for soldiers, and he knew, and again, he was incredibly talented. He was so talented, he was charismatic, like, come on. This is how you lead, man. Whether it's for the right or the wrong reasons, this is how you lead a fucking army. Oh my, oops. Didn't mean to say that. I'll try and keep the F-bombs to a minimum. That's my only one. Okay. I gotta listen to that again, though.
His men threw themselves at it and took it despite fierce Austrian resistance. For Napoleon, it was all he needed to confirm that he was the greatest human who had ever existed.
Like?
Wow, Napoleon, you're pretty great at this military stuff. Just be careful your head doesn't get too big. What did you just say to me, you little prick? And as Napoleon swept through northern Italy, the Italians cheered his arrival. Yes, I'm here to liberate you from your cruel Austrian oppressors.
And then to become your oppressor.
And replaced them with French ones. Napoleon plundered as he went, sending riches back to France to help its economy, but also paying his men the first real money they'd seen in years. The Pope had been supporting the Austrians, so Napoleon briefly went to go give him a slap. And as he began to approach Vienna, the exhausted Austrians were forced to make peace, with Napoleon overseeing negotiations himself. He had just single-handedly knocked Austria out of the war. And by the way, he was only 28. So maybe it's about time you moved out of your dad's attic.
He was pretty young.
In the Italian territories he had conquered, Napoleon established new French sister republics, even writing constitutions and organizing governments himself. Not something a general generally does. When he got back to France,
he was intelligent.
He was hailed as a hero, and the extremely unpopular government were concerned he might get some power-hungry ideas. So they agreed he should go far away from France to Egypt, where he could maybe undermine British access to India. Napoleon was eager to win more glory, so he brought with him a team of scholars, and he was like, whoa, it's a freaky man-cat. Whoa, it's a big stick. Whoa, it's an ugly horse. Whoa, it's a stumpy little manlet. Hey, I'm actually average height for the time.
That's it.
But then British Admiral Nelson came down and wrecked his fleet,
His average
and an
height for the
Anglo-Ottoman
time.
force
Pretty
defeated
short
him at
for
Acre.
today's
So
standards.
Napoleon abandoned his men and went back to France. His campaign in Egypt hadn't gone quite as planned. But one thing you should know about Napoleon was that he was a skilled propagandist. He published his own newspapers that sometimes exaggerated his achievements, and even commissioned paintings that generally made him look cool. So when he returned to Paris, he was yet again hailed as a hero, and he began to get some power-hungry ideas. First, however,
Shocker.
he had a bit of a problem to deal with. See, he had learned something shocking about his dear wife. Really, Josephine? This guy? I'm just as tall as him. I'm sorry, I swear. Now that you're becoming famous, I'll never do it again. Make sure you don't. I've never stooped so low as to cheat on you. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll be in this room consulting my generals for the next 30 minutes. And by consulting, I mean boinking. By my generals, I mean this woman. And by 30 minutes, I mean 2 seconds. Having dealt with his wife, Napoleon was then approached by a very influential politician who said he had an idea. He wanted to stage a coup against the deeply unpopular government and needed the extremely popular Napoleon's help. And Napoleon thought that was just the darn tootinest idea. The plan was to trap the government and convince them to voluntarily give up their power. And here's how they did it. Hey guys, oh my gosh, quick! There's a dangerous Jacobin plot to overthrow you, which we definitely aren't just making up. Better get inside this cage so we can protect you. Okay. Gentlemen, we got him. In this case, the cage was an isolated palace outside of Paris, with no one around but Napoleon and his army. With the government inside, Napoleon then entered, and a pretty chaotic event ensued, during which the government didn't seem entirely sure what was going on, Napoleon's men didn't seem entirely sure what was going on, and Napoleon himself didn't seem entirely sure what was going on. But thankfully, Napoleon's brother Lucien, president of the lower house, managed to regain control, and the remaining councilmen were intimidated into creating a new constitution. And thus, a new government was formed,
I didn't even know he had
this
a
time
younger brother.
with 3 consuls in charge. But after Napoleon did some rewriting, in the end, there was really only one man in charge. The first consul. Him. And over the next few years, he worked to consolidate even more power and essentially became a dictator in total control of France.
Yep,
And by
pretty
the
much.
way, he was only 30. So
Yep.
maybe it's about time you washed your disgusting bedsheets. France was now ruled by possibly the greatest military leader of the time. Possibly the greatest? Or definitely? Now was his chance
one of the greatest
to
of all
prove
time,
it.
honestly.
See, back when Napoleon was still in Egypt, being Indiana Jones. Back home, France was in France, being France. They had conquered even more territory, and they were like, hey Piedmont, you get revolutionary ideals. Hey Switzerland, you get revolutionary ideals. And Rome, you get revolutionary ideals. Everybody gets revolutionary oh hey guys, nice sledgehammers. And Naples, very cool nail gun. You guys here to get some revolutionary ideas?
UK, Austria, and Naples have something to say to France.
As France was still spreading the revolution, and with Napoleon busy in Egypt, the European
I love
powers
the
felt
faces
the time
that
was right for
Oversimplified
round two,
created
and the
for
war
this
of the
video.
Second Coalition began. And this time,
that's right, there
their
was a
big
second
bad
one.
boy buddy Russia was here to bang some French boys back to Bordeaux. And bang them, they did. France got blasted. But then Russia pulled out after stalling in
believe it.
Switzerland, and now that Napoleon was in charge of the country, he was ready to start blasting right back. He took command of the Army of the Reserve, and he brought the fight to the Austrians. Now, there are many traits that made Napoleon a great military leader. I already mentioned one of them, how he was one of the boys and commanded the total loyalty of his men.
Yep.
But now we see a second
Very
reason,
charismatic.
the element of surprise. In 1800,
Charismatic
Napoleon
and
moved to Geneva,
intelligent.
and it looked like he was probably going to
What
take
a
on the Austrian
combo
forces
for a dangerous
in Germany.
military
There's
leader,
no
but
way
man,
he'd
a
be
good
crazy enough
one.
to move his entire army south through the Alps as a surprise attack on the Austrians besieging Genoa. Oh, Napoleon's moving his entire army south through the Alps as a surprise attack on the Austrians besieging Genoa. Napoleon's crossing of the Alps is legendary, and you may have seen one of the most famous paintings of the general, popping a sick wheelie on his majestic
that's
stallion
where
surrounded
that
by
painting
dangerous
comes
mountain terrain.
from.
Of course,
I'd seen
in
it,
real
but I
life,
had-
he made
I-
the crossing
how
on
did
a
I not
depressed
figure out it
mule,
had to do with
but
the
that's not as cool.
siege over the
When he
Alps?
emerged in Italy,
I'm an
the
idiot.
Austrians expected him to come break their siege, but Napoleon went for their supply line near Milan, forcing the Austrians to
Milan.
meet Napoleon head-on at the famous Battle of Marengo. The Austrians initially
even I've
clobbered
heard
the
of
outnumbered
this.
French, and they were like, hooray, we won. But then a few hours later, Napoleon showed up again with an even bigger army, and he clobbered them right back. Holy cow, this tiny little fun-sized French guy is running rings around us.
Hey! I'm average height for the time, you jerk!
Then, after General Moreau's victory at Hohenlinden, Vienna
Yep, that's
was
it.
exposed, and the Austrians again sued for peace. Just like the War of the First Coalition, the Second Coalition ended in another French victory. But in many ways, they both felt more like Napoleon victories. Only the UK
yeah.
remained at war with Napoleon, and they were using their powerful navy to blockade French ports and were even seizing the cargoes of neutral ships. Obviously, everyone else got pretty pissed off that the British were interfering with their trade, so in response, they formed a league. And they embargoed the UK right back. Neutral countries protecting their own interests? That's offensive. So Britain went to Copenhagen and blew a bunch of stuff up, and the league disbanded. But because the UK's
dumbasses.
economy was pretty bust, they decided to sign a treaty with France in 1802. For the first time in a long time, Europe was at peace. Congratulations,
long.
sire. You've achieved peace. Yes, Pierre, but not for long. I
Nope.
still don't trust those dirty Brits. Did you hear they've been calling me the Bony Man? What does that even mean? Keep an eye on them, would you? I can't, sire. Why not? Because they use NordVPN. How would you like to
Segue.
spend 12 hours a day on your favorite website ever without the fear of your data being stolen?
I'll go
Then
ahead
you
and
need
keep the ad in the video.
NordVPN. NordVPN has thousands of
more like
secure
the,
servers in 59 countries, allowing you to safely
I'm
surf
forgetting
the
the
net
word.
at the fastest possible speed, while staying away from online
Sponsorship.
threats, thanks to the
Sponsored.
anti-malware
Sponsorships,
tool,
yeah.
CyberSec. NordVPN comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, and now you can take advantage of their new password manager, NordPass, and new encrypted cloud storage solution, NordLocker. NordVPN lets you search for better deals in other territories and unlock content not available in your country, like some oversimplified videos, for example. It's incredibly easy to use.
Oh,
With
yeah, I
just a click of a
suppose
button,
there are
you can
certain
head up to
videos
Canada
of
and watch some
oversimplified that aren't
sweet
allowed in
Canadian
certain
TV,
countries. I do
just
know
like
about
that. Go to
I don't remember
nordvpn.com
which videos and which countries, but
oversimplified
I've
to
heard
get a
about
2-year
that.
plan plus 1 additional month with a huge discount. That's nordvpn.com /oversimplified. And as always, you'll be supporting my channel. So thank you.
It's always.
Now, where were we?
NordVPN.
Oh, yeah.
Honey and
Crossing the Alps, defeating
Skillshare, I
the
think.
Austrians,
Those are the
and
big
Europe
ones that usually
at
sponsor
peace.
Oversimplified.
What a meteoric
Good on
rise it had
Oversimplified for all
been
the
for the young
sponsorships.
Corsican.
All right, here we
He
go.
had just taken charge of a nation that appeared to be losing a war and turned it all around, securing French gains in Europe. But there was now a big question. You see, throughout the chaotic French Revolution, French governments had struggled to keep the economy afloat. They often didn't have a whole lot of support, and they frequently came and went. Would Napoleon finally be the man who could stick around? Military victories were one thing, but could the general also govern? Spoiler alert. Yes.
Yes.
The economy's crumbling?
Yeah, you
well,
can.
then why don't you have yourself a new national bank, currency reform, and improved taxation and welfare systems?
Yep.
The legal system is
There
an
it is.
incoherent mess? Well, then why don't we nicely wrap all those civil laws up into one new centralized legal code? Corrupt government officials? Throw them in the trash. Bad infrastructure? Throw it in the trash. Women's rights? Throw them in the trash.
Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
Really? Well, yeah, unfortunately, while Napoleon was building on the equality of the revolution, he also largely scaled back rights for certain groups, and husbands had full legal control over their wives. But come on, ladies, maybe let men have a slice of the pie for once, okay? Napoleon further reformed education,
doesn't look
ensuring
good.
a system based on individual ability, meaning now Simeon had to compete with everyone else, and Napoleon could get the cream of the crop to help him run the republic. But he wasn't just building on the ideas of the revolution. The revolution had led to a lot of chaos, and Napoleon needed stability. So he rolled back a couple things, most notably with religion. The revolution had pretty much kicked the Catholic Church to the curb, but
Yeah.
Napoleon understood that since many French citizens still considered themselves Catholic, that could be a problem. So he came to an agreement with the Pope and brought back the Church, only this time with some pretty hefty power limitations. He also ensured freedom for other religions, and is often noted for his positive treatment of Jewish people at a time of widespread anti-Semitism. But while
That
all
is
of this may make
true.
Napoleon sound like a pretty stand-up dude, it's good to note that he believed in religious freedom because he thought it was a powerful tool to keep the poor from eating the rich. Or something like that. Overall, Napoleon's aim was to end
makes
the chaos
sense.
of the revolution and finally create a stable and prospering French republic. And in that aim, he seemed to be largely successful and generally popular with the people of France.
Again, this is where his charisma and intelligence and skill and talent really comes into play. He's got all the right personality traits for this combination of an individual who is an astonishing, probably one of the greatest military leaders of all time. Like, even I knew that beforehand, but now I really believe that. And not only that, but he was even interested in trying to stabilize the entire country, the whole government. And yeah, the whole freedom of religion thing, it's actually a really powerful tool to be able to give people religious freedom, whether it's, for moral reasons or for personal ones or, for strategic move, like as a strategic move, like he kind of seemed to. But it just makes sense. If you limit everybody to the same gosh darn religion, you're not gonna, out of, like, say you got 1 billion people in your country, well, okay, for this is probably closer to maybe, let's say like 40-ish million people. Are you really gonna expect them all to believe the same gosh darn thing? No! Like, even in some of the smaller countries, even in the countries where there's maybe 600,000 people. Not everybody's going to believe in the exact same thing just because they're told they have to. That's not how that works. Everybody grows up differently. Everybody grows up in different places of the world. Everybody grows up under different standards. Like, every single individual is different. You cannot expect that even in a family of 20 people that everybody's going to believe the same gosh darn thing, whether it's related to morals, religion, rights, whatever. You can't expect everybody to believe the same thing. You gotta give everybody the freedom to believe what they want to believe, but obviously Napoleon, being the genius that he is, used it as a strategic move by giving, everybody religious freedom, especially the poorer classes. That would mean that they would be less likely to, that everybody would be less likely to sort of disagree on stuff. Well, they would disagree on stuff, but it's like, yeah, but we can all believe what we want to believe. So... Like, it just makes sense. Napoleon was a genius for his time. Like, not just as a military leader, but even as a governmental dictator. And he certainly didn't always act like, what we might think of as a typical dictator, but he really did want to raise the economy and raise the stability and the balance of the country and the government. That's huge. And he, like Oversimplified said, he was largely successful. It's incredibly commendable. Seriously. God, I knew he was intelligent for his time, but I didn't realize how intelligent he was. Damn! My respect for Napoleon Bonaparte has skyrocketed in just less than 20 minutes of this video alone. That's insane.
was to end the chaos of the revolution and finally create a stable and prospering French republic. And in that aim, he seemed to be largely successful and generally popular with the people of France. He officially declared that the revolution is over, adding, "I am the revolution." Napoleon's head could be seen for miles. Of course, not everyone was happy with Napoleon's reforms.
Surely not.
Conservatives felt he was too radical. Radicals felt he was too conservative. But since Napoleon was a dictator, opposition could usually be stamped out with some good old-fashioned iron fisting. In 1804, Napoleon took one last major step. After some failed attempts were made to assassinate him, he wanted to strengthen his position and ensure his dynasty could live on after him. And so he decided being first consul for life simply wasn't quite enough. He decided he should become emperor. He held a vote asking the French people if they were cool with the idea, and they returned a definitely not rigged 99.9% in favor. The ball's on this man. And so on the 2nd of December, 1804, in an elaborate ceremony at Notre Dame, Napoleon was made emperor. The Pope was even invited to attend, and normally he would crown an emperor. But to make sure everyone knew this wasn't some Charlemagne-style circular power division, Napoleon lifted the crown and placed it on his own head. Like I said, the ball's on this man. He was now Emperor of the French. Well, Napoleon, you were a general, then you became first consul for life, and now you're an emperor. Is it enough yet? Is your ambition finally satisfied? I don't know, Pierre. What comes after emperor? I would say God, sire. You want to be a god? Yes.
That's cyclists.
I'll put it down under maybe. Okay, everyone. What the hell is going on? This Corsican guy showed up out of nowhere, and he's kicking our ass. He's exporting the ideas of the French Revolution wherever he goes, and he just declared himself King of Italy and Emperor. He can't do that. I'm the Emperor. Oh, hey, fellow monarchs. I see you're having a monarch party. My invite must have got lost in the mail. I'll just set up a spot right here. Wow. You don't belong here, Napoleon. We're coming to take you down. I'd like to see you try.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so scared I just pooed my pants. Hey, everyone. I just pooed my pants.
I think he's being serious.
No, but I did just poo my pants. Before Napoleon had even declared himself emperor, the British had already redeclared war on France because both sides had been violating their previous treaty. Napoleon immediately occupied Hanover and then began making plans for a great British invasion, partially paid for by selling a huge chunk of land to the United States. Napoleon gathered his army along the English Channel, but here was the problem. While Napoleon's powerful army would almost certainly obliterate the British on land, there was very little chance he'd actually make it across the Channel, because Britannia ruled the waves. This power dynamic would keep the two traditional enemies from engaging in much real direct combat throughout the Napoleonic Wars. However, the British had something else up their sleeve: copious amounts of money. They were willing to throw cash at anyone who would go to war against Napoleon, and there were plenty of takers: Austria, Russia, Naples, and Sweden, hoping to put Napoleon's France back in its place, formed a third coalition against France. The coalition forces probably thought that this time they stood a chance. They weren't prepared for the total humiliation they were about to suffer. The War of the Third Coalition was Napoleon at his best. We've already learned two ways in which Napoleon was a great military commander, but here comes one of the biggest reasons: speed. He had reorganized his army into corps, which were themselves basically small armies. Each had their own infantry, cavalry, and artillery, and as a result, was able to act more independently. They spread out through the countryside, and by living off the land, rather than relying on heavy supply trains, they were able to move extremely quickly. Napoleon would traverse massive distances, outmaneuver his enemies, isolate them, and then move in for the kill before they even knew what was going on. Lightning warfare leading to total destruction. Would you like to see him do it? Here we go.
God, this freaking genius. Like, oh my, this was him. This was considered to be him at his peak. The rest of it was just a prelude. Oh my God. He just keeps getting crazier and better. Also, this living off the land technique, it reminds me of the scorched earth technique from I think it was the American Civil War videos, because I'm not remembering the name of the individual who did it, who went down to the South and captured, I think it was Atlanta, and then started basically traveling upwards through the South and basically living off the land and taking down, communication lines, railroad tracks, and, freeing all kinds of... I'm almost absolutely positive that I'm right, but that's basically the same tactic. And wait, when were the Napoleonic Wars? I think they happened after the American Civil War, if I'm recalling correctly. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. The Louisiana Purchase, I think, happened after the Civil War did. Or maybe during or before. Crap, I don't know. When it comes to more recent history, I'm not the best with dates, especially if I'm not as familiar with it. But this is basically the same freaking tactic. I'm still blown away that this was him at his peak when he was already doing so amazing beforehand. The guy was a genius. Oh my god. My respect for him has skyrocketed. Holy shnikes. I gotta do more research on this guy. He was able to command loyalty with his charisma. He was able to deceive and surprise everybody with his astounding military skill and intelligence. And he was incredibly fast. Also demonstrating his intelligence, with the whole, speed and, scorcher. Oh my goodness. What were the other ones? Yeah, decisive action, live off the land, divide, and, yeah, I'm pretty sure that similar tactics were used in either the Civil War, the American Revolution, or both. Definitely the Revolution, because that sounds like a George Washington move. But, dividing the enemy armies or cutting off their supply lines. That's how you do it. You gotta be super fast. Almost like a blitzkrieg, but not quite exactly. Still close. But holy shnikes! You guys have no idea how amazed I am. How have I never known any of this? Oh my god, okay.
Destruction. Would you like to see him do it? Here we go. Part of the coalition's plan was for the Russians to meet up with the Austrians and take on Napoleon together. Combined, they could turn the tide against him, so Napoleon needed to stop them from ever meeting. But he's all the way over in Boulogne. No problem. In a matter of weeks, Napoleon marched 200,000 men in secret, encircling Austrian General Mack and capturing his entire army.
Secret?
A devastating blow. Napoleon later remarked,
I have destroyed the Austrian army
by simply marching. Next, he turned to face the approaching Russians.
Okay,
it looks like the French are coming for us. But check this out. I've got an amazing idea.
Do you?
When they approach, we run away. Sir? You're a genius. The Russians began to retreat with Napoleon giving chase, and since his tactics relied on quick victories, this could be a problem, especially because the longer the war went on, the more likely it looked other countries may join the coalition against him. But Napoleon knew the Russian Tsar, Alexander I, was young and seeking glory, so he came up with an idea to lure him in. He sent him a message. What does it say? It says, "Hello, I'm just a little baby boy, and I'm very scared." Are you talking like that, or is he? He is, sir. Why is he doing that? I don't know, but it's very cute, helpless, and vulnerable. A little baby boy, eh? Very scared, eh? Cute, eh? Boris, get my crossbow. We're going hunting. The Allied forces turned to face Napoleon, who they now believed was in a vulnerable position. He was set up at Austerlitz, and to make it look like he was retreating, he had even evacuated the high ground. A thick fog set in, obscuring
I
Napoleon's
totally got my dates
as
wrong.
the Allies took the
Louisiana
bait and
Purchase
set up on the
happened way
heights.
before the Civil
From
War.
there,
I apologize.
they spotted
Please forgive
Napoleon's
me.
very weak-looking right flank, and they descended the heights to go get it. Little did they know, it was exactly what Napoleon was hoping they'd do.
Military
The next thing they knew,
genius!
a large French force was emerging from the fog, launching a huge central assault up the hill. They swung around, crushing the Allies, and as men attempted to flee across the frozen lakes, Napoleon ordered his artillery to fire on the ice, causing an unknown number to drown. But he told me he was just a little baby boy. What happened?
You're an idiot.
He tricked you, sir.
Yeah, clearly.
You mean I was the little baby boy all along? It was Napoleon's masterpiece, and Austria were once again forced to make peace with
15,000
France.
dead plus
Then,
11,000
with the
captured?
French conquest of
Holy
Naples in 1806,
shnikes.
the War of the Third Coalition ended as yet another Napoleon victory.
Oh my god.
This was the third time Napoleon had to give Austrian Emperor Francis a good spanking. And so, with the peace treaty in 1805, Napoleon was determined to punish him. He was forced to give up territory, hand over significant compensation, and promised never to fight Napoleon again. For now, Russia, Sweden, and the UK remained at war with France, but none were able to offer much of a threat. And so, Napoleon got to work strengthening his grip over Europe. He gave out rule of captured territories to his family and friends, and most notably, he established a new confederation in Germany with himself, family and friends. And most notably, he established a new confederation in Germany with himself as its protector.
Did he have any
Seeing
children?
his influence in Germany being wiped away, Emperor Francis acknowledged reality and officially dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, an entity that had existed for over 1,000 years. But it wasn't all good news for Napoleon. For one thing, Spain had earlier allied with France in 1804 because the British just couldn't help themselves from blowing up Spanish ships, and Napoleon hoped a combined French-Spanish fleet would eventually be able to invade
Couldn't the Spanish
England.
do a whole lot
Unfortunately,
of the time, though?
he received word that British Admiral Nelson had engaged his fleet at Trafalgar. Normally, naval battles looked like this, but in this case, Nelson did this. Was it because he was an idiot? No. It's because he was a genius. He successfully punched through the Franco-Spanish line and unleashed hell. His victory ensured British control of the sea, and his death during the battle
Of course,
made
British
him
had
a
naval
legend.
superiority.
Napoleon's hopes for a future British invasion were gone. But not just that. Napoleon was also hoping to secure peace on the continent, but that wasn't looking likely because the Prussian king was under pressure from his wife. Frederick, he's established a confederation in our turf, and he told us he'd give us Hanover, but then offered it to the British. You have to declare war on him. What is it with you and war? What is it with you and being a cupcake? Go to war! Okay. In October 1806, Prussia, with its famed military tradition,
Prussia's leader
joined
really
the
get
coalition
convinced by
and
his
declared
wife
war,
to declare
beginning
war
the
on
War
France?
of the Fourth Coalition.
Oh my god!
Unfortunately, Prussian King Frederick William III wasn't the smartest tool in the shed.
I'd heard about the War of the Coalitions. I didn't realize how many there were.
Boys, we'll get him this time. But
did
here's
I
the
not?
thing. This time, we have to stick together. Do not under any circumstances face Napoleon by
go rogue?
yourself. You all saw what happened to Austria. Hey, where'd Fred go?
He
Hey,
went
you jerk.
rogue.
Think you're some kind of big shot? Huh? Want to tangle with Fred? You don't got the cojones. We're screwed. Without consulting its allies, Prussia had gone ahead and sent Napoleon an ultimatum, demanding he move all his forces out of Germany. Now, some of you watching this video probably can't even wipe your own bum yet, but even you know you don't just send Napoleon an ultimatum. Obviously, Napoleon went in for the kill. Prussia's army was quite outdated, so when they met Napoleon at the twin battles of
Yeah.
Jena and Auerstedt, it wasn't
think
even
isn't that
close.
part of the reason
Even
why
Marshal
Prussia
Davout's
dissolved
heavily
eventually?
outnumbered corps at Auerstedt sent the Prussians running, and Napoleon carried out a ruthless pursuit of his fleeing enemy,
I don't know
taking
too much
Berlin,
about
and within
Prussia,
a single month,
but-
decimating the Prussian forces. Frederick William and the remnants of his army moved to the east. At this point, Napoleon's forces were pretty tired. Winter had come, and conditions were miserable. He anticipated both sides would settle into winter quarters, but Russia decided to try their hand at an unexpected winter attack. A series
'Cause
of
it's Russia.
brutal battles followed that took a heavy toll on both sides, including the vicious Battle of Eylau, fought in blizzard conditions. Men froze to death, and many deserted. The Russian artillery tore the French to shreds, and Napoleon
know how to
himself
fight in the
was
cold, man.
momentarily under risk of being captured. In the end, the French army was saved thanks to a legendary cavalry charge by Napoleon's flamboyant cavalry commander,
I've heard about- yep,
After the
I've heard about
horror
this.
inflicted on both sides, they decided it might be a good idea not to do any more fighting until after winter. Then, after winter came, and the fighting continued.
Yep.
The Russians were pushed back to Friedland, where Russian General Bennigsen made a bit of a blunder by positioning himself with the Aller River to his back. The French artillery were able to pin the Russians between the river and their concentrated gunfire, a major element in Napoleon's fighting style, and many Russians
Innovative
drowned as
artillery
they tried to
tactics.
escape.
Oh
War
my
of the Fourth Coalition.
God.
Victory, Napoleon.
Holy shnikes! Oh my god! This is just the first part. This was almost 30 freaking minutes. Okay, I said I wouldn't drop another one, but I'm about to drop another F-bomb, so... Oh my... Napoleon was a fucking genius. Oh my holy hell. There's nothing else for me to say. He was a damn genius. I've been speaking enough for this video. I was thinking maybe I would put these two oversimplified video reactions in the same video, but damn, they are both like 30 minutes long. And I know for a fact that I've been commentating a whole, but I'm pretty sure that this is almost an hour long to begin with. And I didn't know anything about Napoleon or the Napoleonic Wars. Like, holy shnikes. Okay. I'm gonna take a break. Quick break. And I'm gonna watch the second part shortly. Holy moly, I cannot wait to watch the second part. This is just the first part. Wow. I am impressed. How have I never known any of this about Napoleon? I haven't really known much about Napoleon or the Napoleon. And yes, I knew the height thing would be brought up at some point, whether, you know, a subtle joke or something. Technically, it was brought up twice in a subtle joke. But yes, because back in those days, people generally were a little bit on the shorter side compared to what is seen as sort of the standard or norm nowadays. Like, he was like 5 foot something? He may have been about like 5'6" or something like that. Actually, hold on, let me look this up. 5'7". Okay, so he was about 5'7". So yeah, he was about 5. So yeah, I mean, that height was kind of about normal for, you know, plenty of Caucasians in that time period, like the 1800s. Also, yes, please forgive me for freaking up some locations and dates and whatnot. Again, with more recent history, I'm a little bit more unfamiliar with and don't remember very well a lot of the dates, but yeah, it was even in the back of my head that the Louisiana Purchase had happened like after the Civil War and not like decades beforehand, so please forgive me. I apologize on that. Again, more recent history is not up my alley, very much so, but oh my goodness. I'm partially glad it wasn't, because then I wouldn't get to experience this particular oversimplified video with all these amazing facts about Napoleon and, you know, little bits about the French Revolution and the government and the Wars of the Coalition. Oh, I knew that the Wars of the Coalition, I knew that there was more than one. I didn't realize there were 4. Please don't tell me there's a 5th. Am I an idiot? Okay, hold on. No, I'll save it for a future video, but oh my goodness. Oh, I'm learning so much. And I'm just continuously amazed and impressed. Alright. Time. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna leave it at that. So, okay. Sweetness. Alright. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this reaction. I'm definitely gonna have to put these in 2 separate videos because holy shnikes. But, as usual, until the next video, guys, check you laters.